Welcome to Life is Good. I'm Heather McEwen, your ever-loving hostess. And as usual, I say, guess who we've got on the show today, and you'll never guess.
He rocks in the treetop all the day long, hopping and a bopping and a singing his song. All the little birds on Jaybird Street love to hear the robin go tweet, tweet, tweet. Rockin' Robin, tweet, tweet, rockin' Robin, tweet, tweet. Low rockin' Robin, 'cause we really go.
Jeni Moretti, and she is presently in California. Usually she's in Italy, if not in California. So we're very lucky to have her here at the NEK studios via whatever, satellite or internet or some fabulous thing invented by a scientist who I don't know. Jenny, how
Hello,
are
ciao.
you? Pardon?
I said hello or ciao.
Oh yeah, whatever you like. Both. Speaking of chow, your mother was a gourmet.
She was. I got very lucky. I mean, of course, growing up in the early 70s, it was the boxed foods that got so popular. So I grew up on, pizza from a box, things like that. But then
Swanson TV dinners.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then sometime when I was a teenager, she started doing cooking classes. I guess she got bored and did French and Chinese and Italian. And all of a sudden, a world opened up of flavors and smells. And it was wonderful. It opened up my palate. She had an amazing palate. She grew up in a typical middle class, or I shouldn't say middle class, Midwestern,
Medieval.
lower middle class neighborhood where there were ethnic neighborhoods. So all the Italians lived together, all the Hungarians lived together, but she had friends in every neighborhood. So she loved going to people's houses for lunches so she could try different things. What kid is like that? But that was my mom. So I hope I inherited some of her palate. She had a great
Well,
one.
you must have. Your maiden name is Bloom. Is that not right?
It is.
So where did that fit in?
My father was Swedish, so it's actually was Blom, Blom, and it got changed to Bloom. But yeah, my
And
dad's all Swedish.
that's okay. We had Swedes running in and out of our house from the time I was 5 years old because my father worked for a Swedish company.
Ah,
Yeah,
nice.
so tack så mycket. Tack, mycket tack. And yeah, I love Stockholm. Talked about it on our last show too. Did you get over there with your dad?
I've never been there, sadly. It's on top of my list. I have still a family there. I'd love to
Yeah.
go.
What part of Sweden are they living?
They were in Gothenburg, near Gothenburg.
The Bible, the Gothenburg Bible, or is that no
That's right.
Gutenberg? That Gutenberg
That's
Bible. That
oh,
was Germany.
yeah.
Whatever. It's
Whatever.
probably before my time. So how should I know? Anyway, how did you and I meet?
On a bus. No, before the bus. We met on the airplane when you were
Did
working
we?
for JetBlue. And I remember sitting, observing you,
Oh,
and thinking, this woman is amazing. I mean, and I've flown a lot for work, a lot. I mean, and
oh.
it gets boring. And I see you handling your section of your JetBlue airplane. You were brilliant. The way you
Oh,
connected with everybody. And there was a man who was from Canada, so you started speaking French with him. And I perked up and I was listening, and you were just lovely because you connected with people through the heart. I could see it. Anyway,
aw. I didn't
fast
know we met
forward.
on the plane. I thought we met on the bus.
No, it was on the plane first because then we got on the bus to go to the airport hotel where you and your crew were staying, and I was happened to be staying there too. And I remember looking at you and I said, "You are the most amazing flight attendant I have ever seen." And I said it in front of all your crew, so I'm sure they were very jealous. But
Oh no, that's just everybody at JetBlue was. I learned from my crew members. Believe me, my crew members, my brothers and sisters in blue, were my inspiration in everything. You know, they're all
oh, that's
30 or
nice.
20 or 30 years younger than I am, and they're gorgeous, wonderful people. And the reason people talk to me is because I have wrinkles.
I
You
don't
know,
think
it's
so. I think it's I think it's your energy because
oh,
then when I said that to you, you opened up and you started telling me your story, and I told you a little my story, and it was this beautiful back and forth in this short 7-minute
I
ride.
found out so much about you that day, and
I
now
found
you've
out a
been
lot
married.
about you too.
Oh, now
And
you've been
then,
married 23 years. You've been married now,
hmm hmm
and we talked a little bit about your husband that night.
and
Mhm. And your wine business, that you were just starting a
right,
wine business, so it's gotta be about 15 years ago.
it was
Um,
something like that, yeah.
and your wine business with your husband, I mean, he's born in Italy,
hmm
and you have this developed palate thanks to your mom. but also thanks to your travels. And how did you meet him to come together in this wonderful mutual love of
Yeah.
wine and
Yeah, wine
gastronomic
brought us
enjoyment?
together for sure. It's so I started in the wine business at a California winery, but I knew I always wanted to work with Italian wine. So I had a few jobs in Italian wine. Then I switched over to work for a distributor, and that's when I met him. And knew him, but we didn't date or anything. I went back to another winery, then got into fully into Italian wine. This is a long story. Ended up being competitors in the same market area. So we were Italian wine against each other. And then that's dating.
That's perfect.
And he always
Did he
tells
start
people,
dating you so you could, what is it, mine your mind for information on what you do so that he could compete even? Was it a bit of cheating in his mind? I'm going to get more information from you so I can play better against you? Or was it maybe you doing that?
we were a little mutually competitive. We shared an office at one point and we'd eavesdrop on each other. But as my husband always likes to say, if you can't beat the competition, you marry him. So it pulled us together at this mutual love of Italian wine and Italian food. And fast forward, we started, we decided to get out of LA. We were living in LA. And we wanted to be in a quieter place. We found the central coast of California, Santa Barbara County.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
yeah, it is beautiful. It's also beautiful wine country.
Were
And
you in
I had a
Montecito?
job, hmm?
Were you in Montecito?
No, north of Santa Barbara, about 45
Oh,
minutes.
okay.
Yeah. And San Ynez Valley. And
Mm.
I knew a lot of winemakers up here already. So Antonio transitioned out of his work into selling local wine and
Yeah.
representing local wine, and quickly had this idea to open a tasting room to represent small wineries that didn't have tasting rooms. And it caught on like wildfire. And within a few months, he said, wait a minute, I want to sell my own wine too. And so we created the Moretti label. And I was still working in Italian wine, helping him on the weekends. And we started our company, our two companies, the Tasting Room and the Moretti Wine Label, on a bunch of credit cards, and it took off. And ever since then, our Moretti label kept growing and growing and growing. At one point, we had two tasting rooms. Then we ran that for 14
Until,
years.
until 23, right? 2023, you
Yes,
sold it?
till 23. We sold it. We sold the Moretti label along with the other tasting room that represented other people. And during that time, I was doing trips, which we can get into in a bit, but it was a lot of fun doing our own label.
Hi, I'm Jeni Moretti. My husband and I started Moretti Wines in 2009. Our first wine was a white blend of Italian varietals because we love Italian varietals. So we went right to what we love. And over the many years in creating different whites and reds, I think we probably created 10 or 12 different types of wine. Most of them were focused on Italian varietals. We eventually expanded to Italy itself and imported a Prosecco, one of the top level Proseccos you can get in Italy. It's a DOCG, best quality, and that ended up being our number one seller. We no longer own Moretti Wines, but we do own Moretti Wine Travel, where we take folks to Italy and show them our favorite wineries, wine regions, restaurants, and food producers. So I hope you can join us one of these days.
And we played with Italian varietals, which we love. We also did some local varietals, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, things like that.
You've got a
But we
pretty
learned,
good Prosecco.
and a
Yeah.
Prosecco from Italy we started importing that got wildly popular because people didn't realize how good Prosecco can actually be. It doesn't have to be the cheap stuff.
No, what's really, I went to sort of a brunch the other week, and they listed what we should bring, and they asked me to bring. Well, I read it incorrectly, so I brought what the person before me was supposed to bring, but it was Prosecco, and they were very glad that I brought one because the other person who brought one, it went really quickly. It's a very nice thing to watch people enjoy that.
Easy to drink for sure.
Well, it
Yeah.
was for them, but it's a swimming group, so it's a good group. Getting back to why you sold it. Was it just too much because of all the traveling?
Hmm. You know, it sounds, it was a fun business, but like any customer service business where you're on your feet serving people all day long, it's exhausting at the same time. So while having fun, we were getting more and more exhausted. And we said, this isn't right. We shouldn't be doing something that exhausts us. And my husband's 10 years older than me. And he said he was ready to retire. And I said, okay, then I'll just do trips. I'm fine with that. I'm happy with doing trips. So we started, we ended up selling it to a lovely couple. They were actually club members of ours. And
Hmm.
we danced around the subject for years. They thought they'd want to buy it someday. And it just worked out perfectly. And they took our baby and have grown it. And it's lovely to see it still in existence.
It
And
is.
at the
I
same time, we
applaud that.
decided, excuse me, I'm sorry.
I applaud that because when you have your baby, you don't want to give it to someone who's going to ruin the name.
Right. About the same time we were selling, my husband did get diagnosed with cancer, which was just another, um, push that, or a sign that we were doing the right thing. Time to slow down and take care of ourselves.
You've really talked a little bit about not on air, but previously about the journey it is and the wonderful growing experience it's been.
I always say there's a silver lining to everything if you look hard enough for it. And of course, you go through a complete shock when someone gets diagnosed. And there's so much fear around the word cancer, and it's not all warranted. It's built up. Um, I won't get into too much judgment about the medical system, but there's a lot of fear that's intrinsic in the medical system too. And it's been a journey both of learning and navigating the medical system. Also, we've done a lot of alternative therapies. That's been mostly our focus. But trying to understand it all means you really have to embrace it yourself and learn. It's No one is going to tell you everything because each doctor has their own path, their own specialty.
Where do
Go
you
ahead.
go for your information?
People and the internet mostly. So sharing the journey with others who have been down that road has been super helpful. And I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of hours we've spent on the internet, just scouring it for information and suggestions. You
And the
learn a lot.
alternative you've chosen, what would some of the alternatives you've chosen that you see working?
A lot, a lot. There's almost nothing we haven't chosen. We've tried it all. We even went to a clinic in Mexico where they kind of put all those alternative therapies together. And the best part about that was we learned a lot, and the connections that we made with others there helped open up other worlds because not everyone did well with those alternative therapies, including my husband. So we took that knowledge and came back and incorporated it with Western medicine. And together, it seems to have been the best combination.
Well, the
So
yin and the
herbal
yang,
med,
the yin and
yeah,
the yang, that entire symbol of Western and um,
exactly.
natural medicine, they do go hand in
Right.
hand. If they are incorporated together, both have their valid points.
They
And
do.
you can depend on all of one and not get anywhere, or all of the other and not get anywhere. But I think the melding of the two, the marrying of both sides, is the future.
I
And I just
totally
wish the
agree.
information, I wish the information was more accessible to everybody because if you don't have the right questions, you can't get the right answers.
Yeah.
So you've done a tremendous amount of it, self-education.
Excuse me. And everything you've just said echoes what all of our friends in that world have found themselves. The marriage of the two seems to be the most successful.
Yeah,
And it's too bad though, because there's natural practitioners that really put down the Western medicine. There's Western doctors that put down the natural medicine instead of having it help each other.
yeah,
And it does really help each other. The things that we're doing naturally support Antonio to take on the Western approach and vice
exactly.
versa.
And you've practiced, well, you're a yoga instructor, but you only practice that briefly. Now you're into meditation. You've been meditating since the 80s.
Mhm.
Does Antonio meditate?
He does. Yeah. And it's because of the cancer he started meditating. He
Isn't that
jumped
funny?
into it. Yeah. He knew that, like, I think like any disease, he understands there is an emotional element to it / psychological. And if you don't address that, you're not addressing the whole picture. So he had to
Okay,
come to, go ahead.
I have a little encouragement for Antonio. I sprained my back 3 days ago, and I meditated, well, in my own way, and told the universe, at night before you go to sleep, if you tell your subconscious what you want, your subconscious will do the work. And I said, I don't have time for this. I have to be better tomorrow for the following reasons. And I woke up the next morning, 50% better. That's from incapable of breathing to 50% better 44-mile bike ride.
Wow.
The next night, which woke into today, I did the same thing, saying, you gave me 50%, I need 100% tomorrow or close to it. Not enough to re-injure myself, but do it, please. And I asked my subconscious, and that's very Eastern, that's very Native American, that's very First Nation, as we say in Canada, bossing your body around with your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be able to do it naturally, but I've fallen out of the practice, and I started doing it again recently, and it works.
Yay!
And so, today, I get up at my usual time, 3:45, 4:30, between 3:30 and 4:30, and I'm out in the garden as soon as the sun comes up with a hoe and a shovel and transplanting. And yesterday I couldn't do that, but I swear it's not anything to do with medical profession. It's with the demands you can make on your body because you don't know its potential. Mm-hmm. So for cancer, which I've had, a very unserious sort, but when they told me, I thought, well, I better start using my mind. And it wasn't necessary. It was that infinitesimal an episode. But I'm glad your hubby is doing that with you. And you've learned esoteric. Tell me about your esoteric studies.
I got interested in at first Eastern religions when I was in college and started studying Buddhism and Hinduism, and it just kept going from there to, you name it, pagan traditions, all kinds of esoteric studies. And I got lucky to find a teacher where I live about 15, 16 years ago, and I've been with her ever since too. And we have a women's group, we get together, so it's supportive but also teaching.
Is it metaphysical?
And, yeah, metaphysical, but she's also a psychologist, so she blends beautifully spiritual stuff with psychology. So I'm just fascinated by everything that we can't see, but we feel and we sense and we know, and then we can prove it by feeling it and doing like what you did, working with the mind, working with spirit. And it's the more you get into it, the more you realize how much there is to know. We are little tiny human minds grasp such a small amount of what's around us.
That's right. Well, then you just defined what you saw me do on the plane. We only are trained to see what's right before us. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the whole person, you see, and I'm not talking auras, you see the energy. Mm-hmm. You see and feel and encompass and embody, so you can love and just embrace that soul. And if you're learning that, I have a lot more to learn, but I try and practice it whenever I'm around people, because that is the essence of being spiritual.
Yeah, it is. You told me a story once about being on a plane. You told me many stories, or maybe I've read them too, but you there was a man on a plane, and you must have read his aura. He was in a lot of fear before the plane took off, and you acknowledged it for him, and you brought him to the back of the plane and prayed.
And we prayed to Allah.
Yeah.
He's Muslim.
Yeah, and that's another example of meeting people where they might not even know they are. Right?
Yeah. Oh, that was a beautiful experience too, Jeni, because I took him to the back of the plane, and I said, and I didn't know what came to my mind. It's not a public thing. I'm Canadian. We don't talk about these things in public, right? So I say, we don't talk about anything in public. We just say, I'm sorry, and aren't we nice? But I said, "Well, would it help you to pray? Would it help you to pray?" I mean, where did that come from? Because I pray all the time. And he said, "Yes." And then I said, "Well, oh my God, there's so many. I wonder who he prays to. Who do you pray to?" And he says, "Allah." Well, of course. So I aimed him at a corner. I said, "This is pointing to Mecca. I can't find my way out of a paper bag, but it'll
Yeah.
work psychologically. So put my arm around his waist, and yeah, and he just melted. We prayed to Allah, and I was doing the praying, and it's like a total dissolving of his fear. I could feel it. And he had the greatest flight. I love that fellow.
Oh,
He
that's
was going to see his
beautiful.
sister. He hadn't seen her for 7 years, and she had lupus, and he had to go. Oh,
Yeah,
we're so
yeah.
lucky, when we work with people. Now you must work with people the same way when you take them on tour to Italy.
I
Let's hear
do.
about those adventures.
I do. Before I get there, I want to back up to something you asked me about Antonio, my husband, and this journey in the silver lining part. So, I mean, we talked about navigating the medical systems, but and the meditation and how it's helped him in working with his mind. There's a great author, by the way, if your readers don't know it, I'm sure you know him, Joe Dispenza. He's
Ah,
written great books about using the mind for health, and he's got wonderful guided meditations. Anyhow, what it's taught Antonio and me, though, you can imagine it as you well know in your journey, it's taught us to live each day. And it sounds so trite to say live each day to the fullest. I don't embrace it that way. Like, oh my God, this might be our last day. We have to do everything. It's a feeling of being in the moment, and from the meditation that helps us, and
mm-hmm.
letting things go easier. The
Oh yeah.
stuff that it could always bug the crap out of me about my husband, I look at it now and say, if he wasn't here, I would miss that crap. And so I can let go of this. And he does the same thing to me. So it's that it's smoothed our edges out, and it's made our marriage so much happier, and we appreciate each other more. So that's been our silver lining. And
Now, I'm divorced, and I'm wondering, had I thought your way during the marriage, if that could have worked for us. And no. A hard no on that one.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but it would have made it a lot easier when we were still together,
yeah.
But apparently I had too many faults for him, and he's probably right. There,
Well, sometimes you're just not meant to be together. I get it. I get it.
just not just not the right kind of wife for you,
Yeah,
mister. But bless his
yeah.
heart. And I got two great kids out of the deal, so it's fantastic. They're 43 and 44 now.
Wow.
And you've got doggies
Not
and kitties
anymore.
and all kinds of
Not
animals.
anymore. Yeah,
Aw,
we kind of let it go when our life got too busy, and I'm really glad we did, because we could focus more on us, and we needed that shift. It's kind of like when you raise kids. There's a time, okay, they need to leave the nest, and that's kind of how I felt. Okay, I did my doggy thing.
yeah, because you're not allowed to kill
You
them.
know?
They gotta leave. It's so funny. Anyway, okay, we're getting off subject. We're getting on to murder now. That's not good. I'm only kidding, everybody. I really like my kids. Um,
Okay, on to Italy. Something
and
happy.
yeah, let's talk about how you got into touring, folks. If you haven't heard, if you haven't read, if you don't know the Moretti movement, it's a tremendous tour organization manned by the
Yes.
Morettis, Jenny and her hubby Antonio. And they take people on either private excursions or they give lectures about wine and food, but they go to Italy to do it, which is your husband's stomping ground. So off you go. Tell me more,
Okay.
please.
So when I fell in love with Italian wine before I met my husband, I went to Italy and I started studying wine there and going back and forth. And I knew it was my passion. At some point when I was working for Italian wine importers, I started organizing their educational tours. So we would take wine distributor folks and restaurateurs and retail owners to Italy to educate them about the wine that we sold. And I liked it. It was grueling, those kind of trips, really grueling. You're up at 7 and you're out till 1 a.m. and that kind of thing, seeing 4 wineries a day. But I loved it. And then after a few years of doing that, I said, wait a minute, I could do this for consumers. This would be really fun. And so I started that in 2007 and
Yep.
doing it at the same time as I was doing the industry tours, and kind of kept that going. But I was still working full time, so I could only do one a year, one every other year. And fast forward to when Antonio and I had our tasting room and our Moretti wine label, it was easier to get away. I was doing one or two a year then. And then when we sold the business, I said, this is it. I can transition into doing this full time. Full time. It's maybe 4 trips a year. It's full enough. It's a lot of work on the front side before you get there. So now that
Well, for sure. And you don't pass out any of the jobs to anyone else. You do it all yourself. It's your package. You create it.
yeah,
That's first class.
there's not many people that do what we do. You see a lot of group tours where you load on the big bus and 50 people and they take you to the same places, Florence, Venice, and Rome, and you don't get to see off the beaten path. There's only a few people out there in the world that do small group tours, wine and food focused like we do. Then now Antonio's helping for the first time since he's retired, and he loves it.
To know you so well and to travel with you just makes it all the more special. And we had a ball. We had a lot of fun. So
Yeah, we and I'm new on this.
By the way, I saw a picture of you two together. What a gorgeous couple you are. I mean, if you don't, it just screams, hi, I'm in Italy. I'm doing something fabulous.
I'm glad it comes off that way.
Yeah, really. It's like you should be on a L'Oreal commercial going, I'm worth it. Because wait, the Moretti wine tour, we're worth it. Because you're so good.
I might take it from
Anyway, I
you.
hope we get to show some of those.
Oh, anyway,
He's so much
he's a
fun.
natural.
What kind of response do you get? Yeah. He looks,
He's happy doing this now. I wasn't sure how it would go. He might hate it. He might love it. I might end up doing it alone. But now he's really into it. So
he's so GQ. He's 100% GQ, cover man on GQ, Everybody would follow him in the tour and you. What are some of the responses you get from the people? Do you get repeat business? Like, oh, I can't wait to do this again?
Fortunately, that is the best compliment we can get. We get a lot of repeat business. And there's people that go on our trips that aren't necessarily, huge wine lovers, but they have the experience of understanding a story that wine tells, because wine production is so ancient, and it really tells a story of the region. Each region in Italy, as many of your viewers might know, is like a mini country. They each have their own flavors of food, of wine, of dialects, of everything, the people, the way they look even. So typically we focus on one region at a time, and that is, I call it like slow travel. It's really understanding, getting deep into that region instead of just brushing broad strokes over all of Italy. So we move the tours all the time, so it's easy. If you go on one of our tours and like it, join another one and you get a whole different experience. But typically,
how fantastic.
We don't take more than 12 people, so they're small, intimate. And I always hear people say, I was never a tour person before, but it was so fun. When you connect with people over a dinner or a lunch, and all of a sudden you're sharing things, and you take yourself out of your normal life and into that situation, and somehow people get more intimately more quickly. I think that's what
I was just talking to Kelby, who will be the editor of this show. She's the backbone of this show. Actually, you won't meet her on camera, but everybody, if you're listening, Kelby and I were talking, and she'd like to go to Rome. And she likes to get engrossed in the population of wherever she is and have an experience from morning till night. She's not going to bask on a beach. She wants to experience and become familiar with the area. And that's the way to travel. She's got the perfect attitude. I'd love to send her on one of your wine tours.
Kelby, come anytime.
But wouldn't that be wonderful?
I said, Kelby, come anytime.
She's giggling, but the dreams come true. Yeah, for sure. And romances on these tours. I mean, second honeymoon. What a wonderful second honeymoon that would be.
If you don't mind people.
Or a first honeymoon.
If you don't mind other people around.
Or first honeymoon. Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
No,
but that should be fun. What is your favorite wine?
Oh, goodness.
To be linear, I'm sorry.
I mean, I go to Italian wine for my favorite in general, although there's lots of exceptions to that. I
Yeah.
I have a hard time picking one. I
Yeah, sorry I put you on the mark
um
there.
maybe Barbaresco from Piedmont. It's
But that's France.
No, Piedmont is the northwest corner of Italy, on the border of France. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Oh my God. Okay. But on accepte ça, oui. I'm from Quebec, and when my dad retired from his Swedish company, he became a winemaker.
Oh,
He had his own label, and he entered some contests, hobbyist contests, and he was respected for that. But his was German Riesling.
well, up there, that's what
So,
grows.
yeah, and he never grew his own grapes. He would order them, in a packet like every other home vineyard
Mhm.
or vintner. And he became, I would have called him an educated connoisseur by the end of his
Mm.
life. He retired early. He had 30 or 40 years of retirement before he passed away, but it was so nice to hear him speak of it with such a glint in his eye and feeling in his heart. And when my children were very young, he would line up wines on the table and have them taste them. And I said, Dad, don't do that. They're like 4 and 5 years old. He said, they have to learn sometime. And now they drink rather well. Well, my son doesn't drink, but my daughter enjoys a good brew. And none of us have become connoisseurs, of course, but it's always wonderful. The conversation never stopped when he was talking about
Yeah.
wine. Well, the monologue never stopped, but it was great to listen to it because it's such an in-depth subject.
I always say it's an agricultural product married with art.
Mhm.
And there's, you
Totally.
could say a chef does the same thing, transforms an agricultural product into a piece of art. And there's so much passion behind it and so many variations on a theme. Yeah, it's endless. It's endless. You could never.
My son is a chef.
There you go.
My son is a chef, and he studied engineering, and in his third year, he called me and said, "I want to be an engineer." And I said, "Okay, what do you want to be?" And he said, "I'd like to be a chef." And I said, "Be a happy chef." And now he's 43, and the raves I hear after he's prepared something. He did a banquet for 200 people, and my neighbor happened to have passed away, and it was for his funeral, post-funeral, and it was last week. And he and his crew put together at the restaurant where he works the 200 menu, for 200. And I have an Airbnb, and so the people staying at my Airbnb said, "Oh, we just had the following at such and such a place, and it was just this and just that." And I said, "That was my son."
Aw, proud
And
mama.
and I told, proud mama because he's
Yeah,
happy.
because he's happy.
And if you're not happy doing what you're doing, give it up.
Exactly.
I couldn't imagine him as an engineer, maybe an architect because that's artistic, but not an
In a
engineer.
way,
I mean, give
food
me.
can be engineering too. So I think a
It
part of it.
is. The first, he made me a special fish dish, and he put beets in and then an apricot on top, and it was like this, and you don't know where to start, of course. All the way down. But it was so delicious. I've never tasted anything like it then or before or since. So
You
I just love it when people develop a palate.
Right, right. It opens up a whole new world. It's like training your ear for music. You can train your palate to pick up new things or your nose. It opens up experiences that you didn't have before. You
Mhm.
mentioned that there's local winemaking in Vermont where you are. Is that right?
Very much so,
That's
yes. Yeah, my best friend in Vermont, well, I moved from one side of Jay Peak Mountain to the other side of the mountain 6.5 years ago, but I lived in the same place for about 35, 37 years. And my best friend over there is Margot Sherwood, and she's 80 years old, and she's a real estate agent and an antique person, antique dealer. She's not antique, she'll never be antique. But her daughter, actually, her daughter started a casting company after apprenticeship in LA. And yeah, and during COVID, she moved the casting company to online remotely in Vermont. And her husband started a vineyard, and he ordered I don't know how many thousands of little trees or vines. And now they've had their first batch of wine and their first tasting. And I didn't go because it's a long drive for me. I fall asleep at the wheel at 12 miles, so I don't go anywhere. And apparently it went very, very well. And next year will be their second full year of harvesting and making of the wine. And that's only one that I know very personally, but the microbreweries for beer are big in Vermont, but I think wine is becoming much, much more popular. So that's
There's
nice.
now
You'll see.
wine vineyards in all 50 states.
Yeah.
So it's present. It's in people's minds. They can see it now
Yeah.
everywhere.
Is it global warming? Or just it's a
Part of it,
combination,
yeah.
combination
Part
of
of
global warming? Well, they might as well enjoy global warming with a good glass of wine.
Exactly.
You know?
Oh, well,
Wine
that's
cooler. Why? Because it's 140 degrees outside.
yeah.
Oh, good. I was going to talk to you about other things too. Being raised in Massachusetts and ending up on the West Coast, what a shock. You were 16 years old when you left Massachusetts?
Yeah, I was. So yeah, everyone thinks, oh my God, what a shock. Exactly. Um, I loved living in New England. I loved our town, loved my
What was it?
friends. Town is Holliston, Massachusetts. It's 25 miles southwest of Boston. A
Oh,
little
just the
cute,
perfect location.
picturesque New England town. Very, very sweet. And I
Why did
had
your parents move out west?
my dad worked for Ford and got transferred out there. He had a very specialized job, and there was very few places he could work. But I embraced it. I mean, it was like, we're going to the beach. We're going to California. I mean, who wouldn't love that? And I think I was at a time in my life, I was having a lot of personal issues and troubles, and it was my way of escaping those and starting new. So I kind of gave myself a new identity on the West Coast and helped myself out of those issues. And so it was a positive move for me. It really was.
Well, very good. But at 16, everybody has issues.
Yeah.
Everybody, and I do believe in geographic escapism if you want to make a complete break from whatever is that's bothering you. No matter where you go, you take yourself with you, but the transformation into something positive is also a choice. So you did it.
And I think at that age, I didn't know of how to do it without a geographical change. I didn't have the tools to help myself. I was a kid, and
We
my
are,
parents
yeah.
were not emotionally available to me at that time in my life. So that helped me. The move
Was it
did
the
help me.
generation, the generation that just wasn't available to children because we were being told what to do and kind of a stiff upper lip?
That's part of it. Yeah, that's part of it.
New England, and
Yeah.
I was raised in it. My father was from an Edwardian family.
Oh wow.
So stiff upper lip. If you can't see the bone, your leg is obviously not broken. You will walk to school. I don't care how long it takes you to get there. And I'm
Yeah.
really glad I had that in a lot of ways because now I can walk when I'm injured. But it toughened us up. I think there's a little bit too much hugging and no consequences for the youth of today.
I totally
mean,
agree. That's why I value my time growing up in New England, because it did give me that. I mean, New Englanders are a hardy stock, just like
I
you
know
said.
we have coping skills.
Yeah,
We've had to have coping skills. And now if a child stubs his toe, you get a trophy.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
didn't run the race, poor little Johnny, you didn't run the race, or, oh, that was naughty. Let's talk about it. Whack. Oh, that hurt my back. Anyway, there's a happy medium there somewhere, and I think that
Completely.
the youth of
There
today
is.
being coddled is not doing the nation any good.
It's not. It's not. And you see it everywhere in
Yeah.
every walk of life. And even outside the country. I guess it's the
It,
times.
it's the group hug generation,
Yeah.
and don't give me a group hug. Just be straight with me.
Yeah.
Tell me what's going on and give me a solution, or tell me your problem and let us deal with it. But I'm not going to just say, oh,
Yeah.
let me hug you, little Johnny.
I know.
How are you going to deal with that?
My
I don't know.
my therapist slash teacher, she always calls me harsh in spirit, because I'm just like that too. Like, oh, come on, get over it. Don't you know what to do? Do it.
That's right. I
Yeah.
believe also now there are mourning processes. Did you mourn the loss of, or the sale of your business in the initial few years?
My
It's only been
husband did.
2
I
years.
didn't. I was jumping up and down. I was so ready to get rid of it. I mean, I loved it. I love where it brought us, but it was not the right work for me to do. My heart and soul are in Italy, in travel, also in esoteric sciences, which is difficult to marry those two things. But I was not cut out to stand up in a tasting room and serve people wine all day. It wasn't for me. So I didn't mourn that. No, my husband had a little transition time with that one
Did he really? How did he cope?
by driving me crazy.
Oh,
No,
really?
no.
Did he rearrange your kitchen cupboards?
I wish he would have. No, I didn't get that kind of coping. No,
Yeah.
actually, he had to transition very quickly into dealing with his cancer. So I think his energies were channeled there, but it was like something depressing on top of something depressing. So it was difficult at first.
I think men have a tougher time, but bless his heart. My
Yeah.
dear, what else would you like to chat with me about today?
Oh goodness.
Did you bring any ideas with you?
Well, actually, what I just said, I was just thinking about those marrying the two sides of myself, that, the person that loves the esoteric sciences and spiritual things and Italy and food and wine. I'm trying to marry them a little bit. And eventually I want to do some trips that are just focused on like personal retreats in Italy and, get journaling and doing yoga and meditation and other things like that. Last year I did one that was kind of a combination. It was called Wellness and Wine, and we got to stay. I'm a mountain person. I think you are too, and so I went up to the the mountains in Alto Adige, the north, kind of center north, the Dolomites. They're called. They're exquisitely beautiful mountains, and it seems like almost every hotel in the area has their own spa. There's saunas, and it's all about health. And so we stayed at
Yep.
this place where you could do saunas every day and steam rooms and swim outdoors, take hikes, and then we did wine in addition to it. And it was my favorite trip I ever did. So I'm going to be doing more of those. But
Yeah,
trying to
I'm a
marry.
firm believer. I'm a firm believer in sauna. I have one, and it's a steam sauna,
Oh,
and it's just big enough for me, and it's only 3 feet by 4 feet, and I'm 5 feet tall, so it's like I can't lie down, which was a bad engineering thing on my part. So sometimes I come out and I'm a little I'm like this, but then you jump into cold water, and then you get back in the sauna, and then you jump into cold water, and it it's perfect. For me, it's the ultimate me time. It's the ultimate bubble bath time for me. And you feel so relaxed afterwards, and you feel like you've done something good without doing anything. And
very,
that,
very Nordic of you.
yes, I know, but it's
Yeah.
doing something for yourself without doing anything for yourself physically. No, there's no mobility required. You can stretch in there, but you can do nothing. Just sit on a towel. That is very foreign to people who take care of their health by going to gyms and gyms and gyms all the time, which is a great thing to do. But the relaxing thing of meditation and sauna,
Mhm.
anything like that, people don't look at it as part of your physical. Well, you do if you're Nordic, you do if you're Swedish, you do if you're other ways. But I wish everybody had a sauna in their house.
I
And
just read a recent study. I'm sure you've read them too. When they looked
it,
at like Finland, Sweden, all the Nordic countries, the people that do saunas live longer. It fights disease.
it does. It does.
Besides,
It burns it right out of you. It sweats it
yeah,
out of you. Yeah. In
it
fact, you know what I'm
does.
going to do? I think when I go home today, that's what I'm going to do. Or maybe I better work first. Oh no, my clinic's open this afternoon. Never mind, I better work. But I'm going to get one by the end of the day. I will have done that, and I'll be thinking of you, thinking, "Oh, I hope Jenny's having one of these too."
But it's the sauna that it helps enable you to do this other work too, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'll tell any of my friends out there who are watching the show, all 6 of you. No, this show gets good play, but you're never going to see me nominated for any kind of award for the television show because it's a very small viewership, but because it's a cable station. But we put it on YouTube. So if anybody out there is watching us and you haven't had a sauna, find one in your area and test it out, and then utilize it for the benefit of your health. If you have arthritis, and these are hands that are, I'm very proud of my hands. They've done everything, and they're as ugly as sin. But I look at them and I see my life. And before sauna, it was a lot less. It was more like, Lord, make my hand like the other hand. Thank you, Lord. It's like now they're very, and the rest of my
It's true.
body too. So yeah, highly
I
recommend.
agree. I have a
Highly-
sauna at home too, and we use it all the time. Yeah.
Okay, well, my I've just got a signal for end of time practically. If we're going to have time to edit things into this show, I've loved talking to you, Jenny.
It's it's been so fun talking to you too, and I mean it. We need to interview you.
Oh well, that'll take 6 minutes of your day, but no.
Anyway.
Thank you for that, but no. A hard no on interviewing Heather. It's
Well, I hope I see Heather or Kelby or some other of your Vermontonians. How do you say Vermont
Vermonters.
people? Vermonters.
Yeah.
On one of our trips to Italy.
That would be nice.
fun.
All the information will be here, ladies and gentlemen watching the show, how to contact the Morettis, how to go on a wine tour. And you don't have to be a connoisseur. You just have to enjoy life and trying new things.
Here I am, 1,800 feet high in the hills of Chianti in Tuscany, on the land of Fontarudoli. Got a beautiful sunset and the fall colors behind me of the vines. It is so special to travel here at this time of year. It's cold, beginning of winter, but you get chestnuts and you get porcinis and you get truffles and you don't get any crowds. So hoping I'll put together a Tuscany trip for November. Anyone interested in November trip in the cold weather? Comment below.
Jenny is a Renaissance woman. Can do a little bit of everything and a lot of some things. And if you looked into her heart and into her eyes when you first met her, I didn't know you were one of my passengers or customers, as we call them at JetBlue. But when I met you on the bus, I felt like I'd known you all my life. And our conversation was very personal and very in-depth for the 17 minutes we had to the hotel. And that speaks volumes about your ability to relate to people and to take people on an educational tour for tasting and gastronomic joy and wine and history in another country. You'd make them feel at home no matter where they are.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you.
My pleasure. So we'll talk again, I hope.
I hope so.
Okay, in the meantime, I'll say goodbye to my audience. Hey, listen, everybody. Thank you for watching Jeni Moretti. Jeni Bloom Moretti. Contact her for any information on her lovely wine. All my best to Antonio with all our love from Vermont.
Thank you.
With, we're going to be sending all of our very, very powerful Vermont energy to him. And for those of you watching, I thank you very much for watching Life is Good. And we'll see you all again next week. I love you all.
Gonna rock tonight.